Danieli na Isaka na Yakobo uyu munsi ugaragara. Imara kubyara nahise mbona ko umwana wanjye afite ikibazo gitandukanye n'icy'abandi. Abaganga bambwiye ko umwana wanjye ashobora kuzahura n'ingorane igihe ari kurya, ari kunywa cyangwa ari guseka. Nta mubyeyi wifuza kubwirwa ko umwana adashobora guseka. Apotoli?
Witeguye mugiye kwa muganga.
Nditeguye ndagenda. Ngiye nk'umubyeyi ndamukunda, ariko ni ibintu bigoranye kubona ko abantu bamureba cyangwa se ko bamufata. Ndashaka ko umwana wanjye agira ubuzima bwiza, kandi ndifuza ko yabona ubufasha kugira ngo agire ubuzima bwiza.
Cleft lip and palate, it's a congenital conditions where children are born either with a cleft lip. It means when the lips are not fused, or an open palate when the palate is not fused. This condition is quite common. We estimate that 1 over 1,000 births is born with cleft. In a well-trained hands, surgeries are not challenging, but we are lacking surgeons, and sometimes we may also lack teams around the surgeons, meaning anesthesia providers, nurses. We started working with Operation Smile a number of years ago. It was around shifting from the traditional mission-based kind of care to a much more integrated way of doing things through education and capacity building.
Operation Smile is a global nonprofit that provides free cleft care around the world in 36 countries. We've been doing this for 40 plus years and served tens of thousands of patients.
Turabona rero umwana ashobora kubagwa, tuzamukorera kwa kabiri. Ngo muragenda mubonane n'umuganga utera ikinya abasuzume nabo, noneho tuzabonane kwa kabiri ku munsi wo kubagwa. Ngaho rero bye. Ngaho see you on Tuesday.
I became involved with Operation Smile and AI because my long-term dream is to bring more programs worldwide to a lot of countries who need it and to build local capacity. In places like Rwanda, where there is a shortage of cleft professionals, leveraging AI allows us to bring the expertise of hundreds or maybe thousands of cleft professionals to that location.
The use of AI in the surgical field may improve the quality of surgery.
For every patient that we take care of at Operation Smile, we take before and after pictures of them. We do tens of thousands of these pictures every year, and that's the data we use to train the AI system. Much of plastic surgery is subjective. Every surgeon may give you a different opinion about what they think about a result. Therefore, the objective answer we get from the AI can bring all of the practitioners together.
He has a 2, which means on a scale of 1 to 4, 1 is the least severe and 4 is the most severe. That means it's sort of in the middle of how severe the cleft lip can be.
For cleft conditions, the before pictures help us understand the severity of cleft disease that someone has. Knowing the severity helps us educate the parents in the future on what to expect of the care he'll need. The AI is used for our after photos to help us determine the quality of our results. This is extremely important as we want to provide the gold standard of quality for all patients. It also helps us identify surgeons who can become educators for us.
Zamuka nyine hari ihema se wahabonye Erika araje kukureba nyine zamuka hari ihema muhure niho turi ku muryango wa Europe.
Kuba umwana bamuvuye akabona nenge afite biranshimishije pe kumubona ageze hejuru nta kibazo afite ngiye numvise binshimisha cyane.
Today, we have tens of thousands of patients who have a cleft as a small child and they need those surgeries right now. Rwanda is a great example of bringing together the needs of today with what we're building for tomorrow.
To achieve both surgical capacity here in Rwanda, we should go by training, educating our people. Not only producing our own surgeons, but also working holistically on everything around surgery. For the future, I would wish that one day we sit and say, okay, Rwanda made it. We have enough surgeons that we would wish, and our people are being treated timely and safely. That is my dream.
Sinabona uburyo bwo gushimira abaganga badukoreye kuko ibintu badukoreye niyo mpano ya mbere utapfa gukura ku muntu uwo ari we wese. Umwana wacu agiye kuzajya anywa ajya aseke nta kibazo afite.
Good evening, everyone, and a very warm welcome to you all. My name is Astrid Sundberg. I'm the Executive Director of Operation Smile Norway, and I'm your moderator for this evening. It's a privilege to be here at the Conduit tonight, and tonight marks something really special because it isn't just a UK conversation, it's a global one. The work that Operation Smile do connects a worldwide community of innovators, clinicians, and partners who believe access to healthcare should reach everyone, everywhere. We're joined tonight by three exceptional expert speakers who embody that spirit of collaboration and impact. You've just seen her in the film, and we're lucky to have her here in London tonight. Flying in from Los Angeles is Dr. Caroline Yao, plastic surgeon, renowned for her work in cleft care and reconstructive surgery with Operation Smile, plus a ton of other accolades I wish I had time to reel off. Let's welcome her with a big round of applause.
Thank you.
Next up is Ricardo Martin, Managing Director of Johnson & Johnson MedTech UK and Ireland. He has worked across Europe, Africa, and Turkey, driving innovation at the intersection of biology and technology. Please join me in giving Ricardo a very warm welcome.
Thank you.
And last but not least, it's such a pleasure to have Golda Fania Kamara with us. Golda is a powerful voice in global health and a digital transformation strategist who's worked across Africa, UK, and Nordics to strengthen health systems and champion innovation. Every time I meet with Golda, I leave the conversation a little wiser, and it's a joy to have her back on stage tonight. Please give her a very warm welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, are we ready? So Caroline, we saw you on screen just now as a part of the Beyond the Code series produced by the BBC StoryWorks team. And AI has been described as both a force multiplier and a risk amplifier. In cleft care, where the stakes are survival and dignity, how do we ensure that AI reduces disparities rather than deepening them, particularly in places where health data is scarce or uneven?
I think AI, just like any other technology, is based on the people making the algorithms and the data that we use to make the algorithm. And I do think that's a bit that's lost on people. They think that the algorithms somehow have created themselves, or they go on unfettered, but it really is who is designing it for what purpose, and was there equity in the data that we used. And the history of equity within medical research is fairly poor. Even now, for clinical research, almost 80% of data being put in is for white men. So data like that we're trying to change as we make projects like what you saw in our documentary, by being more inclusive and being just cognizant of that fact that we would like to include a diverse set of people and diverse set of information, means that we are making algorithms that will be hopefully much less biased, or I dream of bias-free, as we look at very rare diseases like cleft lip. I would add that cleft lip is extremely rare, so Operation Smile does have this unique window into many countries and many countries of people, so we have the chance to make this bias-free repository of information.
Thank you, Caroline. Ricardo, in Kigali earlier this year, Operation Smile led the first ever Pan-African surgical conference. It was, I'm told, a historic gathering that brought together top surgical talent from across Africa, supported by Johnson & Johnson, who've been an Operation Smile partner for many years. How do you think this type of partnership as a long-term commitment, and what lessons have you learned about what works with partnership and what doesn't?
Thank you. So good afternoon, everyone. And we're going to try and answer these questions in just under 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes max. First of all, it's a real pleasure to be sharing the stage with three incredible giants of healthcare like you three. This is a partnership that I think it's over 35 years, Johnson & Johnson with Operation Smile. And over these decades, there's been over 400,000 smiles that have been generated through it. 50,000 of our employees have participated in this. And it's really evolved from what was a mission-focused type of intervention to what today has become quite a multidisciplinary and programmatic partnership. And over the years, like surgical capacity, all of this has been with the objective of expanding access to safe surgical care. If I think about some of the lessons, there's plenty, of course, but two that come to mind. First of all is the incredibly central role of the nurse in this. The nurse is the heart of the operation, of the operating theater and of the operating system. And I think this has evolved into really training the nurses and allowing them to expand their impact through different programs that will provide them training on, things like handling surgical equipment, sterilization of surgical equipment, supporting, providing pediatric anesthesia, and everything to do with perioperative care. And I think over the time of this partnership, and just lately as we started evolving into supporting nurses, I'm going to look to Helen here whispering in my ear, about 170 nurses trained in the train-the-trainer approach, so that they go back to their countries, and I think by now they've reached over 100,000 patients. So nurse, point one. And the second point is been really this evolution from mission to actually a systemic approach to be able to try and generate self-sustaining, decentralized healthcare. And this Pan-Surgical Congress was a great example. In Kigali, I had the fortune to be invited to go there. It was the first of its kind, and it was humbling to see under one roof for the first time 800 surgeons, nurses, anesthesiologists, researchers, government officials, and some representatives from private sector, all under one roof, discussing some of the similar challenges that they all have across Africa, but also partnering into working on some of these solutions, and more importantly, drafting and creating these human connections that will flourish and hopefully bring some more solutions and support. So it was incredibly a very good experience, and of course very exciting to think about where all this can go.
Thank you, Ricardo. Golda, I'm circling back to you next. As a member of the African diaspora working at the intersection of global health policy and digital transformation, how can we ensure that innovations like AI for cleft care are not simply imported solutions, but are locally owned, contextually relevant, and accountable to the communities they serve.
Hi everyone, thank you so much for coming today. I'm gonna piggyback on what both of you have said, especially the point about medical research being for certain demographics, and then also moving from mission to now wanting to do something more sustainable and having the program integrate into community. I remember the first time I went back to work in Sierra Leone, it was actually when I was doing my bachelor in global health, and I was working with the Directorate of Food and Nutrition. And I remember sitting at a meeting, and then there was an NGO that came in, I don't remember which one, but they had launched an initiative that was 3 months. And they were coming in to show us the results of this initiative and how it had failed. And so I remember the director asking them, when did you plan this? And they were like, oh yeah, well, we did this and we did this research and we came down and then we went to the provinces and no one wanted to use what we were doing and we just don't understand. And she said to them, if you had come to me, I would have mobilized our resources in the province so that when you implement, our public health nutritionists would have helped you to get the community on board. And it really opened my eyes because as a diaspora, I had also had this thought of going back to Sierra Leone, becoming the Minister of Health and quote unquote saving Sierra Leone. But then I realized that when you don't include the community that you so-called want to help from the inception of the project, what ends up happening is that of course they're not going to have a buy-in, and of course it's not going to be sustainable. So I think if you're starting anything, whether it is medical research or global health, start with the strategic priorities of the Ministry of Health in that country. Understand what are the pressing pain points, challenges that they have, and partner with them, kind of like what I see here. That partnership is so important, private-public partnership, and also equity, making sure that whoever is involved in the project also get a fair pay and get a voice contributing to that project.
Thanks for that reminder, Golda. Thank you. Okay, Caroline, I'm circling back to you next with a question about Operation Smile. So Operation Smile has shifted from measuring only the number of surgeries to looking at outcomes like nutrition, psychosocial health, and education. You're also piloting AI tools for speech therapy. And I'd like to ask, how might these experiments change how we understand patient outcomes and push global health systems to measure success in terms of human capability and not just clinical intervention?
Thank you for that. I think a natural extension of our AI projects is looking and or examining all of the data that we have about our patients. As I said, we have a naturally diverse set of patients, and to responsibly look at that and see what the potential is very important for the future. And as Golda said, it's leveraging what we have to make it sustainable for that community. We're now building a tool with the people that we're working with and for their community, so that hasn't quite been done, I think, by most groups. For AI speech, it's a project I started in the last few years because when visiting certain countries, like in Rwanda, and then specifically in Madagascar, and then when I was in Peru, when I would help and do surgery, a patient's palate would be fixed. It is functionally working now, but then years later, every child still needs speech therapy because they're relearning how the muscles work. And that's a lot. That's actually a meeting for 1 hour every week. And upon talking to the speech therapists, I learned the difficulties with that, because a surgeon touches your life once, and that is myself, and I see that, it's very dramatic, but then the number of hours of speech therapy needed, you would have to multiply by almost 100, because for the next several years, you're seeing someone every week, and there aren't the resources for that. Cleft is relatively rare, even though it's the most common congenital malformation. So to have enough specialists who know that disease, you at most in each country is maybe 1 or 2. And I'll say even in Los Angeles, I have trouble finding specialists who can do what I need them to do with someone with a repaired cleft palate. So knowing that is why I looked into speech next for AI. So currently we are collecting speech samples from about 5 to 6 countries, and that's a pilot project, but different languages. We have Spanish, we have English, we have Portuguese, everywhere that we work, and local speech therapists who will listen to the samples and train the AI. And they're so excited about this because they themselves feel the pressure of being under-resourced. They know that they can only see certain numbers of kids and have certain number of hours every week. So I'm really excited about that. It's another partnership with Microsoft, so we will work together with the engineers and different dialects, as you said, it's different for everybody, so we're being very mindful of that, but we want the tool to serve what everyone needs.
Great. Really looking forward to hearing more about how this project goes, Caroline. Ricardo, you lead innovation in medtech at the crossroads of biology and technology. Where do you see the most exciting potential for closing the surgical gap, and what barriers remain?
So the surgical gap is a real thing. I think it's 5 billion people in the world don't have safe access to surgery. If you just think about that for a moment, it's mind-blowing. 2 out of 3 people on the planet do not have access to a safe surgery. That means that something as simple as, hurting your knee playing football or falling from a tree and breaking your shoulder can be a life-debilitating event. And I was very fortunate to get to go to Madagascar as a volunteer to one of these missions, and it's just heartbreaking to see how people live and you really experience this, lack of access to surgical care. You see it with your eyes. It's heartbreaking, and at the same time, it fills you with like a purpose to try and do something about it. I've not been as brave as Caroline that abandoned Wall Street to become a doctor, but I think that the guilt that we feel, some of us, we just channel into very aggressive fundraising. And so there's plenty of barriers, right? But I think, so technology certainly has a role, but it's not the solution to everything. And it really starts with, first of all, building, I don't think I have all the answers, right? But from what I've heard so far, building the surgical capacity, and that's as simple as just bricks and mortar, building the OR. We saw Dr. Faustin there at a time some years ago. He was the only, did you know he was the only plastic surgeon in the whole of Rwanda, 40 million people in Rwanda, the only plastic surgeon, 1 OR for our whole country. I mean, so you got to build more ORs, first of all, theaters. Second is about equity and inclusion. So it's making sure that technologies, people can access it, everybody can access technology, but even if you can't fund the latest tech everywhere, at least that you bring the training forward. So that you have the brick and mortars and you have some training, nurses, surgeons, and anesthesiologists. And third, it's important to also keep in mind the policy shaping, supporting organizations like Operation Smile on shaping the policy and reimbursement, just to remind countries that and government officials that healthcare is not an expense, it's an investment. As obvious as it sounds, and we know even in some developed countries, it's not obvious, right? But in places like Madagascar or Rwanda, it's even more important to be able to bring some of the solutions and help them put it together. So building surgical capacity, training, and policy and reimbursement.
Great answer. Thank you, Ricardo. Golda, drawing on your experience in Ghana, coordinating PhD research on the Safe Delivery app, what lessons did you learn about designing maternal mHealth tools that genuinely strengthen local health systems? And how can those lessons guide us to ensure that AI-driven solutions avoid the pitfalls of digital colonialism and instead build lasting local capacity?
I think one thing that excites me is the fact that the global health industry or global health sector is decolonizing. So that's a really good first step. When I went to Ghana, I was with a PhD student, And I remember the frustration that I sometimes, she was from Denmark, and I'm not from Ghana. So the country was new to both of us. But I could see the frustration in her eyes sometimes when we would be in meetings with partners. And it brought me back to this cultural understanding. When we talk about human in the loop of AI, I believe human, someone said this really nicely, human should be actually in the driver's seat of AI. Because what AI is going to meet is people. And that is both people behind the code and then people in front of the code. So some of the lessons that I saw when we were there was that we brought the community along. And though the mHealth had been developed in Aarhus University in Denmark, when we were working with the University of Ghana, the School of Public Health, they had such a huge influence in how that research went along. We hired local research assistants. We hired the midwives were trained with us and also trained other people. When we went to the hospitals, they told us about how their workday was. I mean, it was, you come down and you have this fancy PhD, and then they're still dealing with paper, scheduling. It was really amazing to just take a step back and say, okay, what is it that we can learn? And I believe that's one of the big things is always having an openness to learn, because there's so much information that we get here in the West that we think is the norm, which who decides what is the norm? Like, why do we have monopoly on that? So when we're really looking to make an impact, I think the best thing we could do is actually go with an open mind and an open heart to say, what are you guys actually doing? What results have you already achieved? Because there's a lot of research that doesn't leave some of these countries, again, because of the way which research is accepted in journals and which is not. And then how can we now bridge that gap between capital in the West and then knowledge in the global South? So I think that's some of the stuff that I really took with me, and that influenced the work that I'm doing now as well.
Thanks, Golda. It's those lessons from maternal health make it clear that systems only strengthen when they're built from the ground up. This might be a good juncture to give the audience a little reminder about these little things on your chairs today. In the spirit of being innovative, this is how you can pose your question tonight if you would like to. You just swipe the QR code and we'll take care of the rest. So there's just a little mid-session reminder for you all. Caroline, I've got another question for you, and predictably it's about AI again. AI is often framed as a tool that should be embedded within wider system strengthening, from let's say digitizing patient records to training local health workers. What does embedding AI into fragile health systems look like in practice? And where are the biggest barriers today?
I think the most important part about incorporating technology is working alongside the local health providers, because number one, as Golda had brought up, they know what the needs are. So what would this technology serve? What do you need the most? And when that question isn't asked early enough, you'll find you make technology that isn't useful and people don't have buy-in for it. So I think that would be the first step. And then after that is, I think, continuing partnership and the local capacity building, because now we have built something together, but we need to use it together, troubleshoot it together, figure out what those pain points are, because someone from afar isn't going to tell you what the pain points are. You're going to experience them, firsthand if you're there working alongside. So I think for any one of these technologies, sometimes making the tech is actually the easy part. I think that part you can do from anywhere. You can make phone calls, you can work with really smart experts from anywhere in the world, and they're excited to do that work. But then the 90% of it is when you're on the ground finding the answers and finding why people don't like it, why won't they use it, why is this adding work to their day and not doing quite what you thought. And if you can work those parts out, you'll be successful.
Thank you. So the key takeaway here is that sort of embedding AI means thinking about the whole ecosystem and not
Yes.
just the tool.
Yes, and part of our experience with Operation Smile is in the last 5 to 10 years, we have started to make repositories of patient information. And it's along the project of harnessing that diverse data set, but each country has different needs. Each country has different conventions of how they notate information, different languages, and those conventions really add up because we're trying to make 35 countries do one global data set. And in the last year, we've actually created a World Cleft Consortium doing exactly that, because in the past, there have been 2 large data sets of cleft patients, and they're called AmeriCleft and EuroCleft. So you can imagine the diversity in that, which is very little. And our dream is to make that type of data set, but globally, and then you have all the challenges of each convention in each country and each, even town within one country differ. So that has involved hundreds of volunteers and employees all coming together. Someone from a different country may come and learn. The healthcare providers in the country will show what the challenges are. And we've started this World Cleft Consortium data collection about 6 months ago.
Incredible. Thanks, Caroline. Ricardo, you have stressed that Johnson & Johnson aims to be an enabler rather than bringing the hero energy or the main character energy, if you will. What does true humility in partnerships like the Operation Smile Johnson & Johnson partnership look like in practice? Particularly when it comes to working with NGOs and local health systems?
Well, first of all, being very choiceful and careful about how many times you put yourself on stage with 2 heroes like this. Starts with that, no joke. It's really a role of enabling, because as Golda said and Caroline just stressed again, the heroes are at the front line. They know what's needed. They're the ones that need to be discovered and enabled. When you have a mission approach, you can fly in on a week, a quarter, and fly out, but then there's people who are left there. So you need the heroes on the ground to be funded, discovered, and enabled and empowered. What you're trying to develop in the end is a self-perpetuating healthcare system that is not dependent only on external intervention and support. So however good the partnership is, and with all the amazing results it's delivered, we always have to remember that the real heroes and the real protagonists are people like the one we have on stage. That's the most important thing.
You are very humble, and that's a really nice comment. Thank you, Ricardo. Okay, Golda. I think this is the last question of the session today, which I'm going to give to you. And my question is, AI in healthcare holds great promise, as tonight's film illustrated, but accountability remains a strong gap. If AI systems make an error in clinical care, who should ultimately be responsible? Should it be the clinician using it? Should it be the developer who built it, or the institution deploying it? I'd love to hear your thoughts on this.
Thank you so much. It's something that I've thought about quite a lot. Especially, I'm not a clinician, but just being from someone who does work within digital health and is an advocate of digital health strengthening health systems, I think it can easily go wrong, but it can also really go right. I mean, I saw here where you were talking about in the video, you were talking about if there's a disagreement between surgeons, you can kind of use the AI to kind of bridge that and get an objective opinion. And then the question now remains, okay, so if we follow that, are we now, or would you now feel like, okay, I'm confident in the data that has been used to create this algorithm, so that despite my personal bias or experience, I trust this? In that sense, I would say that yes, it is the clinician, because you're now saying I am putting trust in this. And it would also be the hospital that have now chosen to use that system, because I understand that obviously clinicians are governed by the hospital and the decisions that they make. However, I also think that when we talk about the product that is actually being created. If it's created so far away from the people that are using it, then we can find fault. We can have certain systems that are great for a Western context, but then lack local languages or translate incorrectly. And then if a clinician is now stressed and have lots of patients, and they have been told that this system is supposed to support you and help you, and then the engineer behind now didn't truly understand what it means to be in a low resource setting, then I think it is the engineer or the people who created the product. So it's not a straight answer. I think it really ties into why everyone that is part of the solution should understand the context and should actually integrate with the community in which that solution is being produced for.
Thanks,
Yes.
Golda. Caroline, I could see you leaning in there. Did you have anything that you wanted to add to Golda's comments there?
Just that I wholeheartedly agree. I think the clinician at the end of the day is the person taking care of a patient. So it's how I think of AI as well. It's people create it, but then people have to continue using their expertise because that technology is never perfect. So I think the human element just can never be understated.
Caroline, while we have you on the microphone, I want to ask you a question that's more of a curiosity from me, if I may. We touched on it a little bit in the green room, but you're a sort of main part in the Beyond the Code film that we saw earlier on. I wondered if you could share with the audience, how was it to do that with the BBC? Was it all very very planned and broadcast in a way that you were impressed with, or tell us about how that was?
Yeah, I was very excited to share that project because it's just not talked about as often as other pieces of technology, and then within cleft care, this type of technology isn't as widely discussed. And then at the same time, I told Astrid I hate being the center of attention. So I'm here with all of you today because I care so deeply about this project and what we do. But the uncomfortableness comes from a deep sense of the fact this was a team effort. So hundreds of people were behind that one project in AI, and it is a huge responsibility being the face of that and the storyteller of that. So I think I do feel the responsibility of doing it justice. So it's both with humbleness and,
How many takes in total?
8 hours for those 6 minutes. Mm-hmm. Also very humbling, having new appreciation for anyone who is on film.
Thanks, Caroline. Okay, we are to our last question of the session this evening. And for the final question, I'm going to switch it up a little bit. We're going to end with a dream big scenario question, and you have a little bit longer than I thought we would have to answer this. So let's imagine. Bear with me on this, please. Let's imagine that a genie pops out of the Conduit bar tonight and gives you one wish to transform global health equity. Now, I'll admit this is a highly unlikely scenario, but it just takes a bit of imagination. What's your wish, and how would you spend it? Ricardo, I'll come to you first.
Well, I would do the old genie trick, which is ask for infinite wishes. So I want infinite resources so that everyone can get the best tech instantly all around the world. But being more concrete and practical, wouldn't it be cool if we had an AI system that you could just provide to nurses in places like Rwanda or Madagascar and turbocharge their technical and scientific capabilities so that their already turbocharged heart and soul would just be there for the benefit of patients? So that's what I would hope for, and I don't think we're so far away from a system like that could actually provide nurses with more technical support, instant training, like Neo in The Matrix. I know Kung Fu, remember that scene? Something like that.
Great, good answer. Golda, your wish, and how would you spend it?
That's a really good question. I think one thing that's bothering me personally right now is the fact that 83% of developmental work in low middle income countries, budget comes from outside of these countries. And in many low income and low middle income countries, less than 15% is allocated to healthcare. So my wish would be that 83% of the budget is allocated to healthcare, that we strengthen the systems, that no one is left behind, and that we build the private sector. And I say this because I strongly believe that once you have a strong private sector, it can now take up some of the responsibility from the government side. And also people will be able to empower themselves financially, specifically women can participate in the workforce and therefore can also afford certain healthcare services that they are unable to right now. So I think that would be my one wish. He already took the infinite one, so I had to be creative. I had to.
Caroline, your wish, and how would you spend it?
Golda took my answer, but I'm super neurotic, so I have a backup answer too. Yes. Of course. But I will say my derivation of her answer was to magically fund all of the NSOAPs. And NSOAPs are National Surgical Anesthesia Obstetric Plans. And almost every country that is low resourced has one, but they struggle to pay for them and actually enact them. So you already took that one. My second wish would be, involving technology, would be to change how medical research is published and shared. Because right now, the majority of medical journals are all in English. They require money, speaking English, and having certain connections to publish in. So I think part of equity and inclusion is having everyone included in that conversation. And when I have traveled to South America, Africa, I make friends with the medical students, I talk to them, and then we end up writing papers together. And I think those partnerships have made us lifelong friends, and we've taught each other about how to make research, how to write it, and what matters to everybody. So my magic thing would be a translation, maybe a bit AI-based, but you should be able to submit medical research in any language from any country, have that cost taken away, and accessing, I'd say, has the same issue, because right now to access any kind of mid to high level research costs money, and a whole lot. So to have that open access for everyone would be a dream.
Great, thank you for sharing your three wishes. I think we have around 15 minutes for some audience questions now. So, Mairead, how do you want to do this? Shall I hand the mic over for you, and then, there's a right behind you.
I get my own mic. Great. Thank you, guys. That was absolutely fantastic. For those of you who I haven't met, I'm Mairead. I'm the Executive Director of Operation Smile UK. And I'm so proud to be part of this organisation, and so proud tonight to be here with you guys. And several of you have been involved with Operation Smile, and to have Golda come and join us tonight, it's just been absolutely fantastic. And thank you also to our audience for sending lots of questions that we're now having to work our way through. So I just have to unlock my phone because I talked for too long. Apologies. Okay, so the first question. You've talked about partnerships. Do you think there are any partnerships that are missing or need to be increased to create better results? It doesn't say for who, okay. So anybody inspired by that question?
Ricardo, we're all looking at you.
I can see. No, I think this is a case where there's enough space for everyone. So one thing we always want to do and change is just invite anyone to come and participate, including you, Odin. Yeah. And I think that's all I got, guys.
Okay, great, thank you.
Space for more partners. Like, needs are infinite, resources are not. So from that perspective, yeah, the more the merrier in terms of partnerships. So quantitative. Qualitative, perhaps, but I'm more in my fundraising mindset. We need funds.
We sure do.
Can I just add something? I also think we need to break the barriers in terms of bureaucracy, because I think there are a lot of people who would want to partner, especially startups, but they just don't have a way to like come in, and it's usually always the bigger companies who get to swoop in. So, yeah.
Thank you both. Okay, second question. You've emphasized that AI and automation must be built with people first. How are you incorporating post-care patient feedback to help train or prompt your AI systems in shaping new medical solutions and innovations aligned with this people-centered mission?
I think part of what you saw on the documentary was that we do have the before and after pictures. And the after pictures, as you can imagine, we have tens of thousands of them every year. So the sheer volume of that is difficult for any human to go through. So we do still have humans checking it, just as we said before. Clinicians are ultimately responsible. So to incorporate post-op care would to be checking all of those images, doing checks of the AI, and making sure that we are delivering the care that we say we are and that we think we are. And yeah, I think that's a social responsibility any clinician has.
I agree. What is the importance of global placements and AI in training healthcare professionals? For no one in particular.
I can go again.
Global placements in AI.
What is the importance of global placements and AI in training healthcare professionals?
That's a really difficult question. I don't know, to be honest. What I can say is there are certain procedures where we have so much data, right? I think 90-something% of the surgical data that is generated in a way that is not organized. So it's very hard to process it intelligently, even with AI. So take, for instance, heart arrhythmia. Heart arrhythmia is a condition that affects 4% of the population, and that can be cured. But it involves a catheter that goes into the heart to ablate, to burn, create a scar in certain parts of the heart to be able to cure that arrhythmia. Now we can learn processing that data from the devices that actually are used for the navigational part of the procedure. And we can, like we already are using deep learning in the algorithms and in the programs for these cartos, they're called, Carto 8 is the version, to be able to improve the further procedures, right, as you go forward. I don't know if that answers your question.
I have an answer specific to cleft, where I've mentioned an AI speech project earlier, and the goal for this algorithm is to hear a new child speak and to diagnose whether or not their speech problem can be improved with speech therapy versus surgery versus something else. And I'd also mentioned we don't have enough speech therapists who specialize specifically in cleft. So in my hopes and dreams for that app, education would be a speech therapist who is a great speech therapist but has very little experience in cleft, using this app, using it with their patients, and it would guide them in, oh, I can hear this now. I hear a certain sound that I didn't hear before, and with enough training, that would be a way to remotely train somebody to do new skills that otherwise they wouldn't have someone teaching.
Yeah, and one thing I really like about what Operation Smiles is doing is the fact that you're collecting data from how many countries?
So far, with 35 overall,
yeah.
These pilot projects, 5 or 6.
Okay, but still, so one of the issues that we have specifically in Scandinavia, I grew up in Denmark, is that we don't have a lot of like diverse data, and a lot of clinicians, the issue is that they can't actually see, for example, when we talk about just dermatology, like they can't see disease on different skin colors. So I think in terms of AI, what could potentially happen other than them just traveling to a new context, which is placement, right, and being there for 3 months and coming back, is that data from different countries could now be used in medical schools and nursing schools, particularly in white majority countries, because they are becoming more globalized and the population is is changing the way that it looks, but the schools themselves and the way they're training clinicians is not changing. It's only currently that we're having one or few people who are like speaking up now and saying it. And as someone who personally experienced a clinician not being able to diagnose me because they didn't understand the condition that I had in my dark skin, I think that this is a huge potential that AI could fill a gap in actually exposing them to different data.
Any more questions there, Mairead?
I was just going to ask, can we ask another, or do we have time? One more. Okay. Okay, another just kind of punchy one. Where do you see the opportunity for AI to create the biggest impact in safe surgical care?
Maybe that's one for you, Caroline.
I'll go first.
No, look, yeah, that's a really good question, and what a good question for the last question. I think that we could have a whole hour and a half, but I think broadly speaking, and I think we're all learning day by day how to utilize AI better, from doing LinkedIn posts and answering an email and writing a card to actually get into more sophisticated stuff. But the areas are basically, at least where I work is, and the work I've seen is selecting, patient selection for better clinical testing, then improving supply chains. That's a massive opportunity to upgrade and find productivity in a supply, in a value chain. And then when it comes to product itself, I see tremendous opportunity already in navigation, right? Surgery, you could ask the question, is surgery an art or is it a science? And it's probably more a science than an art, especially if you think about plastic surgery. Of course it's an art, but it's not. It's also a lot of science in it, right? I don't know what Caroline would say.
It's neither and both.
Right?
Yes.
And so the sweet spot, imagine you could get 10 years of top surgeon training in an algorithm. And that's, I think, that's where we're already getting to. Like, for instance, there already are some robotic procedures. I say some because there are some robotic procedures that are extremely expensive, inefficient, and I think almost immoral to an extent, or unethical just because of how expensive they are. But there are certain robotic procedures that are outstanding, and they help the surgeon navigate, for example, on a knee replacement, navigate the right angle, the right cut, to be minimally invasive, minimize the amount of tissue that is affected, and just result in less pain, faster recovery, no needs for CT scans, all because the surgeon has a GPS that is telling it where to go, where to cut. And so those are some applications of AI. And the last one on product is, on MedTech itself, is around analyzing post-surgical data to be able to optimize and find the best ways for surgeons actually to make their procedures, so that you can turn an average surgeon into a top surgeon. You can turn, the engineer surgeon to a Dali surgeon, a great artist.
I think I definitely agree with what you're saying, and it made me think about derivations of that would make surgery safer. And one of them being, I think AI is most powerful sometimes when it tells us things we don't know, we don't see. Because we have blind spots. There are things that are happening and reasons that complications happen that we don't think of. We think we've thought of them all, but we haven't. So with big data and a large enough data set, you could have all kinds of inputs for who is the patient, what was the circumstance, what happened in surgery. And it's very interesting to have the AI tell you what they think, the variables for having a good or a bad outcome were. And in the best types of research, that is possible. Again, it takes really large data sets, thousands, tens of thousands of patients to do that, but we are headed that way. And then to piggyback off your statement of making surgeons better, I have seen prototypes where you can video surgeons, or you can try to have the AI objectively tell you what made that surgeon different or great, or what made that outcome great. But you have to tell them that outcome was great. And to have that, and to be able to parse down, you would improve if you just did these two things that we see, 80% of great surgeons doing. That would be nice.
Great. I think that's all we have time for today, everyone. Before we invite you to come and join us for a complimentary drink, I'd like to wrap up by saying this evening has shown us what's possible when we consider what it would take for innovation in global healthcare to have a tangible impact. Moreover, how we can make sure the future of healthcare is built with and not just for the communities who need it the most. And that each of us can use our influence, however small, to make innovation more inclusive. And that we don't need a genie, because I think the possibility is already here in this room. At least I've really enjoyed hearing your insights this evening. Golda, Ricardo, Caroline, thank you so much. You've been absolutely phenomenal. Let's hear it for our three fantastic speakers.
And let's hear it for our wonderful MC, Astrid. And with that, you know, there are many
Maureen, I'm so sorry. Can we do a very shameless plug-in for Operation Smile?
Yes, please.
140 pounds, one surgery. 140 pounds. It's a lot of money, 140 pounds. But, you know, it's three nights out, or one, depending how strong your night out is. And it truly will change somebody's life forever. A patient's life and also that family's life. So tell your friends, and if you have a chance, there's no, you know, every penny counts. 20, 30, 40, 140, more. Go for it.
Thank you so much. And the first one's on us tonight, so, you know. So please, you know, if we haven't had a chance to meet already, do join us for a drink and put a face to a name and say hello before you head home tonight. And thank you all for coming. Thank you.